Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who joins us from around the world. We're so glad you're here.
It's wonderful to be with you all.
This is Andrew and Renee. Welcome to the Stack series.
Great to be back.
Today we are exploring the intersection of, well, two things that could not seem further apart: artificial intelligence and the ancient world of herbal medicine.
It is a fascinating collision, isn't it?
It really is. And I have to say, going through this stack, I was struck by this specific irony. We always think of progress as this straight line, moving away from the old stuff and toward the shiny and new.
Right.
But the research here suggests we're actually using the most advanced technology humanity has ever built to circle all the way back and, in a way, prove that the very first technology we ever used was right all along.
That's a very sharp way to frame it. You have the oldest black box in human history, which is the medicinal plant colliding with the newest black box, the neural network.
That's a great term for it.
And what's so fascinating is that they actually speak the same language, complexity.
Complexity, which in this context, it seems to me, is a very polite word for messy.
Well, yes. Extremely messy.
So we have a roadmap today that's going to take us from, I guess, the Paleolithic era all the way to the surfer farms of Silicon Valley.
That's the scope.
We need to talk about the absolute wild west of the current supplement market, then the biochemistry of why herbs can actually be dangerous, which is a point that sources hammer home again and again, and then this explosion of AI in drug discovery.
And the stakes here are really high. I mean, we aren't just talking about making a better cup of tea. We are talking about a fundamental shift in how we discover drugs, moving from a very reductionist view to a systems view, a much more holistic one.
Okay, so let's start with foundations, what we think we know, and we have to go way, way back. The sources mentioned 60,000 years of history. I think most people assume herbal medicine is old in like the sense of their grandmother's garden, but 60,000 years.
60,000 years.
That puts us back with Neanderthals.
It does, yes. The archaeological record is actually quite specific here. We're looking at sites like the Shanidar Cave in what's now northern Iraq.
Shanidar Cave, okay.
This is a site that really, it fundamentally changed our understanding of Neanderthals. Excavators there found several burial sites, and inside them, they found pollen deposits.
Pollen? So like flowers?
Well, that's what they thought at first, but it wasn't just random pollen that had blown in on the wind. It was clumped together. It was deliberate.
So they were placing flowers on the graves. That's incredible in itself.
It's more than that. They found pollen from very specific plants: yarrow, marshmallow, ground sorrel, and even ephedra.
And those aren't just pretty decorations.
Not at all. These are plants with potent, known medicinal properties that we still use today. I mean, yarrow is a coagulant. It helps stop bleeding. Marshmallow is a powerful anti-inflammatory. Ephedra is a stimulant.
They knew. They didn't just see a pretty flower. They knew that this plant does this thing to the body.
Exactly. It suggests a level of cognitive sophistication that for a long time we didn't think they had. It means that even before the cognitive revolution of Homo sapiens, before we had written language to describe pharmacology, there was an empirical understanding.
You just learned by trial and error over generations.
Right. You knew that if you're bleeding, you press this leaf against the wound. If you have a cough, you chew on this particular root. It's the baseline of medicine.
So that's the beginning. And then we fast forward through, Sumerian clay tablets around 3000 BC. You've got the Ayurvedic texts in India, traditional Chinese medicine. But the major pivot point in the research, the moment things really changed, seems to be the 19th century.
Yes.
That's when the soup became the pill.
That is the moment of divergence. That is the birth of what we call modern pharmacology. Up until the 1800s, medicine was the soup. It was the whole plant, the complex mixture. You drink the tea, you ate the paste, you made a poultice.
You got the whole thing.
The whole thing. But then Western chemistry got sophisticated enough to start asking, okay, but what in the soup is actually doing the work? They started to isolate specific molecules.
This is where we get something like morphine, right?
Precisely. For thousands of years, people used the opium poppy for pain. But in the early 1800s, a German pharmacist named Friedrich Serturner isolated the specific alkaloid responsible for the pain relief.
And he named it.
He named it morphine, after Morpheus, the Greek god of dreams. And that changed everything. Later, we took quinine from the cinchona bark to treat malaria. We took digitalis from the foxglove plant for heart conditions.
And the logic behind that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It was about standardization and safety.
Of course.
If you give someone a poppy tea, You have no idea if they're getting a little bit of pain relief or a lethal dose because every single plant is different. The soil is different, the weather was different.
The variation is huge.
But if you give them 10 milligrams of pure morphine, you know exactly what's going to happen. Every single time.
Precision and control. That is the entire ethos of modern pharma. One drug, one target, one mechanism. It's a sniper rifle approach. You find the one receptor that's causing the problem and you hit it with a silver bullet.
Simple. Clean.
The problem is, as we're now learning, biology isn't simple or clean. And nature doesn't act like a sniper. Nature acts like a shotgun.
Okay, we're definitely going to get to the magic shotgun concept later because I think that's really where the AI comes roaring in.
Yeah.
But I want to stick with this transition for a moment.
Sure.
We moved to the pill. That became real medicine in the West. But the stack points out that something like 75 to 80% of the entire world's population currently relies on the soup, on traditional herbal medicine.
Yes, that's a critical point. For the vast majority of the global south, we're talking Asia, Africa, large parts of South America, this isn't alternative medicine.
It's just medicine.
It's just medicine. It is their primary care system. It's what's available and what's trusted.
But in the U.S., and this is where the research starts to get really alarming, we have this regulatory limbo. The DSHEA Act of 1994. Reading through the details of this act, it feels like a loophole the size of a truck.
It is a massive regulatory carve-out. The Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, or DSHEA, effectively classifies herbs and other botanicals as foods, not as drugs.
Okay, let's just clarify what that means for you, the listener. If I go to a pharmacy and buy a statin for my cholesterol, that drug has gone through years of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials. The FDA has signed off on its safety and its efficacy.
Rigorous, expensive, long-term testing.
But if I buy a bottle of Heart Health Support Herbal Blend sitting right next to it on the shelf,
the manufacturer does not have to prove that it works at all. And more importantly, they don't even have to prove that it's safe before they sell it to you.
so they can just put it on the market.
They can. The FDA is only authorized to step in post-market.
What does that mean, post-market?
It means after people have started getting sick or dying.
It's a tombstone mentality. We only regulate it once the bodies start piling up.
That's a grim but accurate way to put it. And because there is no pre-market approval, the entire incentive structure is warped. We see rampant adulteration, contamination. It's a mess. And the sources highlight the PCSBS scandal, which is just a terrifying example of this.
PCP, this was the supplement for prostate cancer, right?
Yes. It was marketed in the 1990s as a powerful, effective herbal blend for prostate health. PC for prostate cancer, SPS is the Latin word for hope.
So, prostate cancer hope.
Exactly. And the thing is, it worked. Men's PSA levels, the marker for prostate cancer, were dropping dramatically. It was being hailed as a miracle of natural medicine. Even some doctors were tentatively recommending it because the clinical results were just undeniable.
But it wasn't the herbs.
Not at all. It was a complete fraud. When independent labs finally got around to analyzing it chemically, they found it was spiked. It had been secretly mixed with powerful pharmaceutical drugs.
What kind of drugs?
It contained diethylstilbestrol, which is a potent synthetic estrogen. It contained warfarin, a prescription blood thinner, and also other drugs like indomethacin, an anti-inflammatory.
My God. So these men, thinking they were taking a natural product, were unknowingly dosing themselves with high levels of hormones and anticoagulants.
Correct. The herbs were just a cover story, a delivery mechanism for a hidden, unregulated cocktail of prescription drugs. And because of the warfarin, men were at serious risk of bleeding disorders, of hemorrhage. Eventually, the FDA forced it off the market, but it shattered the trust in the industry.
It really highlights the danger of this natural equals safe idea that people have.
Yeah.
We assume that because it comes from the ground, it must be gentle.
When the reality is the exact opposite, and this is the evolutionary perspective we really need to adopt.
What do you mean?
Plants can't run away, they can't bite or fight back. They are stationary targets for insects, for fungi, for animals.
Right. They're stuck in one place.
So, to survive over millions of years, they evolved into incredibly sophisticated chemical warfare factories. They produce these complex secondary metabolites, things like alkaloids, terpenoids, polyphenols, flavonoids.
And these aren't for growth, these are for defense.
Precisely. These compounds are specifically designed to disrupt the biology of whatever is trying to eat them. They are poisons.
So when we drink peppermint tea for an upset stomach or take curcumin for inflammation, what we're actually doing is consuming a plant's defense system.
You're co-opting their chemical weapons. A compound that was meant to paralyze a beetle's gut might, in a human, simply soothe an irritated stomach lining. A compound meant to make a grazing animal sterile might, in a human, act as a contraceptive. But we have to respect that these are potent bioactive compounds. They are not inert.
Which leads us directly into the active debate. This is where the science gets really, really dense, particularly around how these compounds interact with our bodies and with other drugs. The term that keeps coming up is network pharmacology.
Yeah.
How does this differ from that standard, silver bullet pharmaceutical model?
Okay, so think of the standard model reductionism as trying to fix a major city's traffic jam by changing the timing of one single traffic light.
Okay.
That's the magic bullet. You find one protein, one gene, one enzyme that you think is the problem, and you design a drug to target that one thing. If you have high blood pressure, you block the ACE enzyme. Simple, linear, cause and effect.
But a disease like cancer or depression or Alzheimer's isn't caused by one broken traffic light.
Exactly. They are systemic failures. The entire grid is down. The whole network is sick. Network pharmacology views the body not as a series of linear pathways, but as an incredibly complex, interwoven network of protein interactions.
The interactome.
The interactome. And it argues that for these complex diseases, you don't need a magic bullet, you need a magic shotgun.
A magic shotgun. I like that.
You need to hit multiple targets, gently, all at the same time, to shift the entire network back toward a state of health.
So this sounds like the scientific validation of the soup, the thing we were just talking about.
It is, in many ways. A single herb like ginseng might contain hundreds of different active molecules. When you ingest it, you aren't hitting one target. You're nudging hundreds, maybe thousands of different receptors and proteins simultaneously. The theory is that this synergistic effect is more powerful and has fewer side effects than hitting one target with a sledgehammer.
But trying to prove that, to verify it scientifically, it must be an absolute nightmare.
It's a statistical and analytical nightmare. Your standard tools, things like high-performance liquid chromatography or HPLC, they're great for finding and quantifying one molecule in a sample. They're terrible at trying to analyze a mixture of 500 different compounds that are all interacting with 5,000 different proteins in the body. It's just too much noise for traditional science to filter.
And this is where the real danger comes in, especially with herb-drug interactions. If we are throwing 500 of these bioactive compounds into our system, and we are also taking powerful prescription drugs, things are going to collide.
They are absolutely going to collide.
And the sources spend a lot of time on something called the P450 system.
It's the Cytochrome P450 system. Yes, this is absolutely crucial to understand.
What is it?
Okay, so these are a family of enzymes. They're located primarily in your liver, but also in the lining of your gut. Think of them as the body's main garbage disposal unit. Or maybe a better analogy is border patrol.
Okay, border patrol. I like that.
Their job is to identify foreign substances, xenobiotics is the technical term, so drugs, toxins, pollutants. And their job is to metabolize them, which means breaking them down so you can excrete them from your body.
Right, so I take a pill, it goes to my stomach, it gets absorbed into the blood, it hits the liver. The CYP enzymes recognize it as foreign, break it down, and then it leaves my system.
In an ideal world, yes. But here's the problem. Herbs can hijack this system. They can act as either inducers or inhibitors of these enzymes.
Okay, walk us through the difference there, because the consequences seem to be polar opposites and both sound bad.
They are. Let's look at induction first. This is when an herb makes the enzyme system work too well. It speeds it up. It essentially tells the liver to build more of these enzymes and run the conveyor belt much, much faster.
Okay.
And the classic example here is St. John's Wort.
The natural Prozac. A lot of people take it for mood.
A huge number of people. And it is a potent inducer of one specific enzyme called CYP3A4. Now, this is important because CYP3A4 metabolizes about 50% of all prescription drugs on the market.
50%. Wow.
So if you take St. John's Wort, you are hyperactivating the main disposal system for half of modern medicine.
So if I'm taking another medication that uses that system,
your liver chews it up and spits it out before it has a chance to do its job. The concentration of the drug in your blood plummets. It's called therapeutic failure.
give me a real-world example of that.
The classic and frankly tragic example is with oral contraceptives. A woman is taking the pill to prevent pregnancy. She's also feeling a bit down, so she starts taking St. John's Wort. The herb induces the enzyme, the birth control is metabolized and flushed out too quickly to be effective, and she gets pregnant.
That is a therapeutic failure caused by a T.
Absolutely. And it's even more dangerous with other drugs. It happens with immunosuppressants like cyclosporine. There are documented cases of transplant patients, people with new hearts or kidneys, who have gone into acute organ rejection because they started taking St. John's wort.
Because it flushed the anti-rejection meds out of their system.
Exactly. It rendered them useless.
That is just, it's terrifying. And the label on the St. John's wort probably just says, supports a positive mood.
If it says that much. Now, the other side of the coin is inhibition. This is the opposite problem. The herb gums up the works. It binds to the enzyme and stops it from doing its job.
So the drug doesn't get broken down.
It doesn't. It builds up and up and up in your bloodstream. The concentration gets dangerously high.
Which leads to an overdose, even if you're taking the prescribed amount.
Precisely. You're taking a normal dose, but your body is hoarding it instead of clearing it. Is this where the classic grapefruit juice warning on medicine bottles comes from?
That is the most famous example, yes. But that's a food, not an herb. Grapefruit juice contains compounds called pharmacocoumarins that inhibit CYP3A4 right there in the gut wall. But in the world of herbs, we look at things like ginkgo biloba or golden seal.
Ginkgo for memory, right? Yes, and ginkgo is tricky because it has multiple effects. One thing it does is inhibit something called platelet activating factor, or PAF.
So the platelet activating factor.
Okay.
That sounds like it helps your blood clot.
That's exactly what it does. It makes your platelets sticky so they can form a clot and stop you from bleeding.
Okay, I see where this is going. So if you're already taking a prescription anticoagulant like warfarin, or even just high-dose aspirin to thin your blood,
and then you add ginkgo on top of that,
you've removed all the safety rails.
You have. Your blood can lose its ability to clot effectively. You are at a much higher risk of spontaneous hemorrhage bleeding into the brain, internal bleeding, all from a supplement you bought because you thought it would help your memory.
That just paints this picture of extreme volatility. We're throwing these complex chemical grenades into our bodies without having any idea where the pins are or what the blast radius is.
And for the better part of a century, that complexity, that volatility, it scared mainstream science away. It was too hard to study. It was too variable. The FDA prefers single, predictable molecules. Herbs are, by their very nature, chaotic.
Until now, it seems. This brings us right to the frontier section of the research. And the stack shifts here pretty dramatically. From biology to technology, we're seeing AI emerge as the tool that might finally be able to tame that chaos.
That's right.
And the first place it's being applied, according to the sources, is as an authentication engine.
This is the first and maybe the most immediate problem that AI can solve. Purity. Remember the adulteration we've discussed? The PCSP scandal. AI is now being used to create chemical fingerprints of herbs to prevent exactly that from happening again.
Okay, so how does that actually work? Is it visual? Is it chemical?
It can be both. Chemically, we use machine learning models, things like support vector machines, or more commonly, neural networks, and we train them on spectral data.
Spectral data.
So you take a sample of what you know is 100% pure, pristine ginseng root. You run it through a machine like a nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometer, an NMR, or an HPLC. iMatchMe outputs a complex data signature. Think of it like a jagged line on a graph or a barcode that represents the unique chemical composition of that plant.
You just teach the AI this is what good pure ginseng is supposed to look like.
Exactly. You feed it thousands and thousands of these barcodes from pure ginseng grown in different regions, harvested at different times. The AI learns the subtle patterns of what makes authentic ginseng. Then you start showing it samples of bad ginseng, ginseng that's been mixed with flour or sawdust or maybe a different, cheaper plant species that looks similar.
And the AI can spot the difference.
It spots microscopic deviations in that data signal that a human analyst or even some standard lab tests might completely miss. The research shows accuracy rates exceeding 98% in detecting adulteration in high-value products like honey, saffron, and various herbal powders.
The visual application you mentioned seems even more sci-fi to me, using computer vision to identify plants right there in the field.
This uses deep learning models, specifically what are called convolutional neural networks, or CNNs. These are the same kinds of algorithms that power facial recognition on your phone or help a self-driving car identify a stop sign.
But instead of training it on faces or road signs, you train it on plants.
You train it on millions of high-resolution images of leaves and veins and flowers and root structures from every angle and every lighting condition.
But why is this necessary? I mean, can't a farmer or a forager just tell what they're picking?
Not always, and that's the danger. In the plant kingdom, there are many doppelganger species. In the wild, a powerfully medicinal plant might look almost identical to a lethally toxic one. A famous example is Aristolochia, which contains aristolochic acid and absolutely destroys kidneys. It looks very similar to another plant, Stephania, which is a harmless traditional remedy for swelling. If a harvester grabs the wrong vine,
People die.
people die. And it has happened. So the AI acts as a super expert taxonomist in your pocket.
It can see things we can't.
Yes, an AI can analyze the fractal geometry of the vein pattern on a leaf and distinguish the medicine from the poison with near-perfect accuracy instantly. The vision here is that a farmer in rural Peru or a forager in India could have a handheld scanner. It could just be an app on their smartphone that verifies the identity and even the chemical purity of the crop right there in the dirt.
It completely democratizes quality control. It moves the billion-dollar lab out into the field.
It does.
But the even bigger revolution here isn't just about checking the plants we already have. It's about understanding them to create new medicines. This is generative AI in drug discovery.
And this is where we see the hypothesis-agnostic approach.
Hypothesis agnostic. I love this term. It basically feels like an admission that human biology is way too complex for human brains, so we're handing the problem over to the machine.
That's a pretty fair assessment. Traditionally, drug discovery starts with a human scientist who has a hunch. I think this particular protein pathway is causing this disease. Then they spend the next 10 years and maybe $1 billion trying to prove that one hypothesis.
Right.
AI, and specifically platforms like in silico medicine's Pandiomics, it flips that entire process on its head.
Tandiomics. It sounds cute, but the specs are, frankly, terrifying.
Yeah.
The source says it analyzes 1.9 trillion data points.
It reads everything. And I mean everything. It ingests genomic data, proteomic data, clinical trial results, every patent ever filed, every grant ever awarded, and it has read and processed over 40 million scientific papers.
So it has effectively read the entire history of biomedical science.
Yes. And it's not just reading, it's looking for patterns. It finds these hidden, non-obvious connections between diseases and biological targets that no single human or even a team of humans could ever possibly see. We just can't hold 1.9 trillion facts in our heads at once.
So it might notice that a protein mentioned in a totally obscure paper from 1980 about, say, liver disease is structurally similar to a target that just appeared in Alzheimer's research published last week.
That's exactly the kind of link it's designed to find. It connects the dots across decades and disciplines.
Okay, so it finds the target, and then does it design the weapon to hit that target?
That's the next step, and that's where the generative adversarial networks, or GANs, come in. This is the generative part of generative AI.
Wait, I know GANs from the world of AI art. That's how we get those uncanny, hyper-realistic images of people who don't actually exist.
That's the one.
Where one AI tries to create a fake face, and a second AI acts as a detective and tries to spot the fake. And they battle back and forth millions of times until the face is perfect.
Exactly the same principle. But here, instead of generating faces, they are generating molecular structures. They use a system like in silico's Chemistry 42. One part of the AI, the generator, proposes a brand new chemical structure designed to hit the target that Pandiomics found.
And the other AI critiques it.
The other AI, the discriminator, pushes back. It says, no, that molecule is too toxic, or that one won't dissolve in water, or the chemical synthesis for that is too complex and expensive to manufacture.
So they go back and forth.
They loop millions of times in silico on the computer until the system outputs a novel molecule that is designed from scratch to be potent, safe, and manufacturable. It fits all the desired criteria perfectly.
So it's not just searching through a library of existing drugs we already know about. It's imagining a new molecule from scratch, atom by atom.
Precisely. It's building the perfect key for the lock it just discovered. And there are other companies doing incredible work here. Iambic Therapeutics have a model called Neuralplexer. It's a diffusion-based generative model that can predict how a protein and a drug molecule will physically interact and change shape at the atomic level. It's like simulating the handshake in 3D before you ever mix a chemical in a beaker.
Okay, and then there's Recursion OS, which the sources highlight as using a different approach they call phenomics. This one felt different to me. It's less about mining text from papers and more about just watching biology happen.
It is different. Recursion's approach is based on images. They use automated microscopy and computer vision to take billions of photos of human cells.
Billions of photos.
They have a library of what healthy cells look like and what cells stressed by thousands of different diseases look like. They create a visual atlas of disease at the cellular level.
So they aren't looking for a specific mechanism at first. They're just asking, what does the cell look like when it's sick with this disease? And what does it look like when it's healthy?
Right. Then they can expose the sick cells to thousands of different compounds, including complex herbal extracts, and the AI just watches. It looked to see if any of those compounds make the sick cells start to look like the healthy cells again.
So if they throw a complex herbal extract at a diseased cell, and the cell starts changing its shape back to a healthy state, the AI flags it as a hit.
Yes. And because the AI can see incredibly subtle changes in the cellular morphology, like the shape of the mitochondria or the texture of the nucleus, things a human would never notice, it can identify potential treatments that we would have otherwise missed entirely.
This brings us all the way back to the magic shotgun.
All the way back, this is Network Pharmacology 2.0.
Because now AI allows us to finally map the effects of the soup. We can take a complex, traditional Chinese medicine formula, something like xiaoyosan, which might have dozens of different herbs and thousands of compounds.
And we can use these AI platforms to model how that entire matrix of chemicals interacts with the whole human protein network.
So we can finally move from this works because my great-grandmother said it works to this works because these specific polyphenols are modulating the MEPK signaling pathway while these other terpenes are inhibiting NF-kappa B.
It bridges the chasm between ancient folklore and modern phenotype. It takes the dirty drug and turns it into a high-precision instrument. We are finally discovering that these dirty drugs, these complex mixtures, might actually be far better for treating chronic multifactorial diseases like cancer or Alzheimer's because they attack the whole disease network, not just one single isolated node.
It's an incredible validation of thousands of years of human tradition, but using the most futuristic technology we possess.
Yeah.
However, the sources don't just paint a perfect utopia. There are massive implications here, and they split into two very different, very divergent possible futures. The stack calls them atrophy and ascend.
Let's start with the darker path, atrophy. This is the risk of what happens when we apply this kind of exponential technology to a fragile ecosystem and an underregulated market. The counterfeit arms race really stood out to me.
Right. We just said that AI can be trained to detect fakes with incredible accuracy. But the inverse must also be true.
It is. If you have a generative adversarial network that can detect a fake, you can train another Jan to learn how to beat the detector.
So bad actors could use AI to formulate synthetic botanicals.
That's the fear.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Imagine a lab in a warehouse somewhere, and they aren't using plants at all. They're using AI to design a cocktail of cheap synthetic chemicals that perfectly mimics the spectral fingerprint of, say, high-quality saffron or organic ginseng.
So it passes the AI authentication test.
Yeah.
It looks pure to the handheld scanner.
It looks perfect to the machine, but it's just a chemical soup. It lacks the biological soul of the plant, all the trace minerals, the complex synergies, the things we don't even know how to measure yet. It would be biologically hollow.
Deepfake medicine.
Exactly. We could be flooded with a market of products that are chemically perfect counterfeits, indistinguishable from the real thing by our best machines, but that have none of the actual healing properties.
There's also the risk of ecological strip mining. If AI can tell us with pinpoint accuracy where the most potent, high-value plants are growing in the wild,
we go get them, and we get all of them. Imagine an AI analyzing satellite imagery, soil composition data, and climate models to predict the exact location of a hidden valley where a rare, high-potency medicinal orchid grows.
poachers and corporations could use that data to harvest every last specimen with ruthless, terrifying efficiency.
We could drive species to extinction before we even fully understand their potential.
And then there's the digital divide. Who actually owns this technology? That seems like a critical economic and social question.
It's huge. If these AI authentication tools, these generative platforms, cost millions or billions of dollars to develop and operate, then the small indigenous farmers in the Amazon or the Himalayas are completely cut out of the modern market.
So the market consolidates around a few massive biotech firms that own the algorithms.
And we lose the lineage of the herbalist. We stop teaching people how to taste the soil, how to smell the leaves, how to identify plants with their own eyes, because the machine does it for us now. It's the atrophy of human knowledge.
It's the GPS effect.
What's that?
Nobody knows how to read a physical map anymore because Google Maps just tells you where to turn. If the satellites go down, we're all completely lost.
That is a perfect analogy. If the AI goes down or if the central database is corrupted, do we even remember which plant cures us and which one kills us?
Okay, that is the bleak version, a very bleak version. Let's pivot to scenario B, ascend. How do we get this right? What does the positive trajectory look like?
It starts with radical transparency. And this is where we see the powerful combination of AI and blockchain technology. The sources mention projects like HerbChain.
A ledger for lettuce, or in this case, for herbs.
Essentially, yes, but an immutable one that no one can tamper with. From the moment a seed is planted to the moment the bottle is sealed on the shelf, every single step, the geographical origin, the farming method, the harvest date, the processing, the lab results, is recorded on the blockchain and verified by AI at each step.
So the digital twin of the physical product travels with it. As a consumer, I can just scan a QR code on the bottle.
And you don't just see a marketing blurb from the company. You see the face of the farmer who grew it. You see the GPS coordinates of the field. You see the mass spec analysis from the lab for that specific batch you're holding in your hand.
It makes counterfeiting functionally impossible.
Yeah.
The digital record on the blockchain has to match the physical reality. If the satellite data says that region had a drought and the crop failed, but a company is suddenly selling thousands of tons of product from that region, the blockchain exposes the lie.
Right. And this level of data then empowers the next step, which is precision herbal medicine. This is the personalization aspect.
So this goes beyond just knowing if the herb is real.
Much further. If we have your genomic data and we know your specific CYP enzyme status from a simple test, maybe you have a lazy liver that metabolizes drugs slowly or a hyperactive one, the AI can formulate a custom herbal cocktail just for you.
So instead of buying a generic bottle of sleep aid off the shelf,
You get a formula that is specifically designed for your unique metabolism and your health needs. The AI knows you're taking a statin, so it automatically removes any compound like grapefruit extract that would cause an interaction. It knows you metabolize caffeine very slowly, so it adjusts the green tea extract to a lower dose. It creates a personalized feedback loop of safety and efficacy.
and finally, this all ties into sustainable sourcing. We can stop stripping the wild.
We use the AI not to find plants in the wild, but to perfectly replicate their ideal growing conditions indoors. Controlled environment agriculture?
Vertical farming.
Exactly. We can grow the rarest, most endangered medicinal herbs in a lab or a vertical farm. We use AI to optimize the light spectrum, the humidity, the nutrient drip, to actually maximize the production of the desired medicinal compounds.
So we get the medicine we need, potentially even more potent and pure, without ever touching the wild ecosystems.
And in this ascend scenario, we finally treat indigenous knowledge with the respect it deserves. We build collaborative AI models where indigenous communities are treated as intellectual property holders. Their generations of knowledge are used to train the AI, and they are compensated fairly for it. We build a bridge, not a wall, between folklore and phenotype.
It sounds like a true synthesis. We aren't rejecting the ancient wisdom. We're using our most advanced tools to protect it, validate it, and scale it safely.
That really is the core message of this stack, I think. The wall between ancient and modern is an artificial one. It's all just information. The plant is a carrier of biological information. The AI is a processor of digital information. We are finally, after 60,000 years, learning how to translate one into the other.
It's a very compelling future, provided, of course, we can navigate the massive regulatory hurdles. I mean, the FDA has its work cut out for it here.
Regulating a black box algorithm that is prescribing a black box herbal mixture is going to require a completely new framework. It's a huge challenge, but the potential to finally solve some of the chronic diseases that our single molecule magic bullet drugs have failed to touch is just too great to ignore.
Before we wrap up, thank you to all our partners, sponsors, and scholars who made this podcast and the research possible. We're truly grateful for your support.
And to our listeners, thank you for being part of this journey with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and follow Stack Studios for more informative content. And support us on Patreon.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and let the search for wisdom guide you forward. Have a great day.
Goodbye, everyone.